Welcome to our live Q&A. This is week number 83, and tonight we are going to be talking about what is the best soil to grow microgreens in. The reason we're going to talk about that is because it is a question. It is a very, very common question that's been asked. So this will not be everything about microgreens. We're focusing mostly on the soil for the microgreens tonight. So welcome, and there's 9 ways that I help people grow food. What we do here is we have a YouTube channel. We have our weekly Q&A. That's what this is. We have a Patreon channel where you can see me working in my garden. And I can teach you all kinds of things there on the Patreon community. I'm a laboratory to do soil tests to help you understand the living active microbes in the soil that make your soil function so that you can get your soil off of being addicted to all of the problems with modern agriculture. We have our Georgic Schoolroom, which is a 17-week-long class in the summertime, and we are taking applications right now. So go to our website to find that application. We have 3-day boot camps. We just had one recently. The next one is going to be in April, right before the major gardening season. I'm available for personal consulting in your garden and your farm. And get my book, Worry Free Eating. It's available on Amazon. And of course, join my newsletter so you can keep track of what is going on. All of this information can be found at www.georgicrevolution.com. On our Thursday night classes starting February 22nd through May 16th, we're going to be discussing a group of books. And these are just a small set of books that I find to be very helpful to give us context in understanding the Georgic tradition and modern regenerative agriculture. So the first book is called The Winter Room by Gary Paulson. So go ahead and get that book, get it read, and then you can be a part of this discussion on Thursday nights. Our summer class starts May 20th. And one of the things that we talk about in this class is, of course, gardening, but we do it in a special way. We study soil health, regenerative agriculture, permaculture, biodynamics, holistic management, silvopasture, Georgics, ecological agriculture, and all of these things add up to a library education and, of course, having profitability in our farming. And why is that important? Because for the last 50 years, farmers have struggled to make a profit. So here's what we're doing in February. A lot of this stuff I did today, but this is what's happening right now. And so maybe this should be happening in your greenhouse and on your farm. We planted 3,000 onion seeds yesterday. And so that's our main crop, onions. It's time to plant seeds right now. And I turned the compost today. I cut the bottom of the worm bin off today to get more compost out of it. So that was pretty awesome. And it is 14 months old and full of fungus. I did a test with my microscope a couple of weeks ago, and it was absolutely beautiful. A very large, diverse amount of fungus, beneficial fungus in that compost, which is exactly what we want. We're in the process of thinning strawberries and replanting strawberries in our strawberry towers. So that's a project that is happening this winter. Right now in February is the best time to get that done. We are transplanting green onions, spinach, and lettuce. I did that today. It took me a couple hours, and I raked down some beds and got a bunch of stuff planted out of plug trays. At this time of year, we are currently eating Napa cabbage, green onions, lettuce, spinach, beet greens, beetroots, carrots, parsley chard, bok choy, broccoli leaves, and kale. So that is what is coming out of the garden right now, middle of winter. So on to our important subject of the night. This is going to be quick because it's a very simple answer, but people generally don't know. So the question is, what is the best soil to grow microgreens in? So any seed starting mix that you can get at pretty much any home garden center would work fine for this. When I grow microgreens, I like to just use pure worm castings, but most people don't have that luxury because they don't have a really high quality worm. In England they call it a wormery. Many places we call it vermicompost, but it's just a compost made with worms, composting worms. like Icenia fideta or Icenia hortensis, any of those worms. So what you do is you just could simply get some peat moss and some cheap potting soil. You can sift it to get all the chunks out of it, and then that makes a good seed starting mix. The reason I say not a potting soil is it just has big chunks in it. So if you sift it out, then what you have is a seed starting mix. And you don't need a lot of fertilizer to grow the seeds because you're only going to grow them an inch or two high. So there's some pictures here of me different times in my life when I have grown microgreens. So what we're looking at here are trays of peas, buckwheat, and lettuce that are growing here. And the microgreens are pretty awesome. So you just cut them off and you eat them. They're beautiful. They're great. A lot of times people make mistakes in the winter. They're trying to grow microgreens and they want to grow them in a south-facing window. And you can do that, but it works a lot better if you have a plant light on top of them because we simply don't have very much light to grow a lot of greens. If you're in southern Texas or Florida, you're probably going to have enough light. But in most places around the United States, you don't have a lot of light at this time of year, so you need a good light. And then the light needs to be on about 12 hours a day. You can even leave it on 24 hours a day, and it's fine for the microgreens. Another thing, you want to have airflow, lots of airflow blowing across the seed trays as they are sprouting. And so it needs to be a balance of good airflow, keeping enough moisture and enough light, and your temperature needs to be good. But any house, if you're doing it in your house, just a normal house where you're keeping it around 65 to 70 degrees inside, it's going to be a good temperature. So that's what I have for you on soil for microgreens. Just a plain seed starting mix is the best thing to use. So we're going to open this up for Q&A now. And I just want to remind you that this Q&A came to you and is sponsored by Survival Garden Seeds. So check out their website for fantastic heirloom varieties. So I'm going to stop my screen share and let's ask questions. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, let's talk about it. If you don't have questions about it, then ask me questions about politics and we can get in a big fight. It will be fun.
Do you have a recommended grow light?
No, you just jump on to like Amazon or a Google search and you just look up grow lights and there are dozens of them to choose from.
Does the color matter or anything like that?
Not necessarily. They have all the different colors. What you want is a full spectrum. So it's just going to have all the different colors. But so they have a bunch of newfangled ones that look blue or they look red or whatever. But if they're made to grow plants, they will grow your microgreens just fine, as far as I know.
So just out of curiosity, what will the plants look like if you have a bad kind of light on them, one that's not giving them what they need?
They will get really long, and the stems will be long, the leaves will be small. They won't look thick and robust and beautiful. They will be a little bit more pale looking.
I have a question. What plants make the best microgreens?
Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of different species out there. I really like peas and lettuce and broccoli and sunflowers are one of the best. Buckwheat is very nice. If you want things that bite back and are a little bit spicy, you can always go with like mustards and radishes because they have that little bit of spiciness. If you don't like the spicy bite back flavor, then stick with things like lettuce, buckwheat, and peas. But I don't know. There's probably like 40 or 50 different species that people are raising for microgreens nowadays. So you just get online and you can just search for all the weird things people are growing. You know, you can do kale and collards, you know, all the brassicas. Really, it's just a seed that is pretty cheap because you want to get a large quantity of seeds So if they're expensive seeds, it simply doesn't make sense to grow microgreens with it. Any more questions tonight?
I am growing apples, like apples from seed in my little grow shelf thing with light. One of them looks really happy, big giant green leaves. The other one does not look so happy. Its leaves have a lot more red in them. I'm wondering if you have any ideas why. They have the same light.
So you're growing them under grow lights?
Yes, because that is what was recommended in the book I read.
Really? To start apple seeds under grow lights, huh?
Well, yeah, because apparently if you put them in full sun before they're like a year old, they'll get sick because they're not like it's not. They're supposed to grow on like a forest floor under shaded trees and stuff. I don't know.
That sort of makes sense, I guess. Apples have been growing for millions of years before a fluorescent light was ever made, so maybe it doesn't know how to grow under a grow light. I don't have a good one for you. Sorry, I don't have a good answer for that. I'm guessing where you have the same light, one pot is doing well, the other pot isn't. It's probably something in your soil. The water content could be different. The nutrition in the soil could be different. A lot of times when you have different colored leaves, it's a problem with you don't have nutrient uptake. If you said it was kind of red in the leaf, if the leaves dry up within a couple of weeks and they are crispy, you have a disease called fire blight. But they look red, kind of leaves have redness in them. Without seeing a picture though, I have no idea what
I'll
to
send
tell
you
you.
one later.
Okay. All right, we have time for one more question. If anybody has a question, go ahead and ask.
What would you recommend on how to water microgreens?
Oh yeah, that's good. So you want to be watering the microgreens so that they stay moist. I always like to water them from the bottom. So you have them in a tray that has holes in the bottom, and then you just set them in a pan of water, and then they will just soak up from the bottom, and that is a really good way to do that. If you have the surface of the soil wet, then the stems tend to get wet, and some of the bad fungus can start to kill your microgreens. If you have plenty of airflow, that shouldn't happen, but it can happen in certain conditions if the bad funguses are in the soil that you're using. Therefore, water from the bottom, and that helps to prevent it. But just with a normal peat moss based soil, you're probably going to be soaking them about 3 times a week. So, pretty much every other day. But if it's too wet and you see any kind of molds growing, or if your plants are not doing well, or if it seems really soggy, then you're watering way too much. So you maybe need to do it only twice a week, or maybe once a week, because there's so many variables within, there could be like tons of different conditions depending on where you're growing these and what's happening. I mean, the humidity in the air is going to matter. The airflow matters. The temperature matters. So there's just a lot of variables. Okay, any more questions? Okay, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for being here. Hopefully this has helped you to have the most wonderful garden of your entire life. This will be on YouTube shortly.